All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for coming tonight. I am Jennifer Wilson, and I'm the Assistant Director for the John Brown House Museum. And thank you so much again for coming to our event tonight. Before we get formally started, I'd love to thank all the staff who are working behind the scenes. So big shout outs to JDK and Kelvis Hernandez, especially for working wonders for finding and adapting technology to suit tonight's needs. Chris Moore for operating the Zoom controls from afar, and for Owen Gibbs, who's not joining us tonight because he's in upstate New York with his family, but for helping pull and choose tonight's objects. Tonight's event takes a new shape from what we've done in the past. Instead of a lecture or presentation followed by a Q&A, we're going to discuss objects from RIHS's collections in real time. So our registrar, Dana-Signe Munroe, has pulled some fabulous examples of wallets and handbags from over a 250-year period, and she'll be handling them underneath a tabletop camera. And that's where you, our attendees, come in. So as Dana displays these items, we'd love for you to ask your questions about them in the chat field. I'll facilitate the conversation by reading questions out to Dana, and this method will allow Dana to work with, as you'll see, some delicate pieces as she turns them over, opens them up, and highlights some of the beautiful artistry of these very personal objects. So please ask whatever strikes your fancy, and we'll try to cover as much as we can in the next hour. All right, so now over to Dana, who's located in the John Brown House Museum. Hi, Dana.
Hi, Jen. Hi, everybody. Good evening. We're ready to go?
We are.
Okay, I'm going to start with a pocketbook or sewing case from 1750. I'm going to put it in the frame here. All right, and so this is an article that is hand embroidered. Look at those colors.
I was gonna say, that's beautiful. It's striking considering it's what, 250 years old?
Yeah, so this is about 1750, although I think it is a little bit earlier than that based on the age of the woman who made it. I'm going to raise this up so you can see it even better.
Oh yeah, I can already start to see some of the stitches and some of the needlework in that.
Yeah, okay, so I think we should pump it up one more level.
Oh, there we go. Oh yeah, you can really see that.
Okay, excellent. So this brown is the color of the sheep. Nice little brown sheep. And then all the other colors are dyed with natural dyes. And this blue is indigo. The pink and the red is probably madder. And then green and yellow. So the yellow was probably, and I'm surprised it's so green. Usually green areas of dyed wool turn blue, which is why when you go to see medieval tapestries, the grass looks blue. That's why, because the yellow is faded out of the green mixture and it's just blue left.
Yeah, that's so vibrant between the reds, the blues, the greens. It's all really popping still. That's amazing.
Yes, and I think this sort of gray color was probably a lavender or a purplish color. I'm going to bring this even closer to the...
Oh, that's amazing.
Love that. So here, each one of these little things I'm pointing at with my little knitting needle are stitches. So every single one of these, the woman brought her needle through the fabric and brought her needle back down through the fabric. Every single one, every single time. And if I move this over, you can see we have some loss here. This is the linen fabric that's underneath. It looks like it's punched holes. That is just the holes that the needle made and the wool then maintained after it was sewn. It would have been a more tightly woven fabric at the time.
Okay. How long, Dana, would something like this have taken to make?
So I do needle point like this and
Mhm.
a piece this size, that's just the front.
Yeah, this is
Like the size. It
yeah,
would have
an
taken-
enormous piece then to make.
Yeah, so this would have taken months. Months, and then when we open it up and you see the rest of it, you will see that it probably took many months. I would say 8 to 10 months.
Oh, wow. Okay. So Dana, we're getting a comment that you're a little muffled. So I know that JD and Kelvis are with you in the background.
Yeah.
So can I ask JD to maybe tinker a little bit with the volume, if that's possible?
Would it help if I put the microphone on my mask?
Yeah, the comment is asking if you could remove it, but I just want for clarification for everybody, we do have additional people with Dana, so that's why she is wearing her mask.
And try and speak up as long as it's coming through the mic, right?
How is that? I put on my sweater. Is that better? Still muffled?
A little muffled, but better than it was.
Okay. I will try to speak louder. Now I feel like I'm shouting. Am I shouting?
You're good.
Okay. This is the inside. And I'm just going to pop this back up again. So I'm going to put my pinky fingernail in the picture so you have an idea of the scale.
Mhm.
These stitches are tiny. And they're actually cross stitches. Very hard to see because they're so tiny. How's that?
Wow. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's an A and a C. And it's probably the initials of the person who made it,
Mm-hmm.
the woman who made it. But on the inside here, we can see that there's this beautiful, shiny, I don't know if you can see a little bit of the shine, silk, green silk.
Yeah.
And then here, where we've had some loss of the silk, which is to be expected for a, a pocketbook that's so old. You can see here there's more coarsely woven linen. It's almost like a burlap.
Mm-hmm.
And that was put inside to stiffen the material. And here,
Yeah.
we also have another layer of silk here. This is green. And I'm not sure what that would have done because there's not much of it, but it is underneath.
Oh, interesting.
Binding. Yeah. So I don't know if there was a green lining and it was taken out.
And then replaced with that blue lining? Would that be a possibility?
You know what? You would think so, but the blue lining is underneath.
Underneath the green?
Underneath the green here.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. And this kind of goes with my theory that it's a little earlier than 1750. So it could have had another lining and it could have had someone else's initials inside.
That's a nice repurposing. And Dana, I have a question from the chat. How would the owner have used this? Is it an evening bag?
Okay. So this is actually, it is, I think, miscatalogued in our collection. It's cataloged as a sewing case, but it's too big to be a sewing case, really. Housewives were usually this wide and much longer, and they would have had little sections and pockets to put your sewing thread in, your silk in, and your needles in a little pin cushion part. This is the underside. Wait a minute, I have to take it back down again so you can see. And there's going to be a lot of this like in and out. I'm going to try to do it smoothly so nobody gets seasick, but.
No, it looks good. Thanks, Dana.
There are actually along this edge here and along this edge over here, there are tiny pinholes or tiny holes in this silk ribbon casing that's going around the trim. And I think this was sewn shut, making it a pocketbook. It's also possible that that's what this green fabric was doing. It could have been making silk pockets that would have come and been here and here and here, and you would have been able to tuck things inside like this.
And that green silk would have picked up the green on the outside as the blue
Oh,
does.
yes.
Yeah, it'd be really,
Yep.
really handsome. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you can also see, rotate this a little bit here. So I don't want to be picking it up and rotating it by hand. I'm rotating the mat, but you can see here, there's definitely some ink stains.
Mm.
And if this was a sewing case, it's very unlikely that you would have ink stains like this. For a pocketbook, it's more likely that they were sticking things in here that maybe hadn't dried, if they were letters or
Oh, interesting.
something like that. So pocketbooks were this size because women at this time had pockets that were detachable.
Mhm.
And I did not bring a pocket out today because we have talked about our pocket quite a bit in the past, and there's a wonderful blog post about it on our website. But these would have fit inside your pocket, which you would have reached through the inside of your, through a hole in your skirt on the side.
Yeah,
The
my
skirt-
understanding of pockets in this time period is that they could hold just about anything.
Yes, and they did hold just about anything. And in court records, especially because we have that wonderful book of the gleanings of the Newport court records from the colonial era, and the Old Bailey in London has actually put up online all of their court cases. And you can see what people had in their pockets because pockets got stolen all the time. So there's also advertisements in newspapers detailing what women had in their pockets. So they would have had coins, they would have had handkerchiefs, and handkerchiefs serve two purposes in pockets. One was to be a handkerchief, and the other one was to wrap things in.
Mm.
Your pocket then became like more organized, right? You would have like your little like wrapped whatever. And then there are some descriptions in letters that pockets are full of crumbs.
Mm.
So you could stick your cookies in your pocket or
That sounds ideal. I am all for that.
right? I know, right? So things like this, pocketbooks like this, and actual pockets gave women who wouldn't otherwise have the ability to carry their personal belongings around with them. And it sort of gave them a little bit of autonomy so that they could venture out into the world. They did not have to have somebody next to them carrying their stuff. They did not necessarily need to have a gentleman to, buy ribbon for them if they needed to go buy ribbon.
Mm.
And then I just wanted to mention something else about this ribbon because I find this totally fascinating. This is the ribbon here, this silk ribbon. That's all the binding that goes all the way around. A lot of it is missing. But this ribbon was woven on a little loom called an ink loom. And this pink, green, and pink, white, this was all the warp, which is the part that goes on the loom. And then some human, wove the wefts back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and made ribbon. I mean, we think today we tie ribbons around birthday presents. We tie ribbons on balloons. We tie ribbons on everything. They're made by machines. We don't really think about it. But
Yeah.
in 1750, this was made by hand on a loom by a human.
Wow.
That's
So
amazing.
that would increase the amount of hours it would take to make something like this too. That's incredible.
Yes, and this is why ribbons were presents.
Yeah.
So young ladies
Lovely.
often write in letters, "Thank you for the ribbon. Send me your ribbon. There aren't any good ribbons."
I've read that a lot. A lot of complaints about I can't find the right ribbon. So
Yeah,
I understand
right.
that.
So
Yeah.
and if and it takes the ship 3 months to get there, and if they couldn't get ribbons for a good price in Europe, then in 1750, then your choice of ribbons could be just what was there last year.
Mm.
And even like today, if you're not wearing the right ribbons, people will talk.
It's the talk of the town. So what else do you have for us today, Dana?
All right, so that is 1750. And that was these pockets were also made by these ladies as presents. So they would make them for their gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a pocket. Oh, am I not? Hold on. There we go.
Perfect. Looks great. Oh, I love this piece. This is one of my favorites that we'll be discussing tonight.
Yeah, this is the front. Look, it's all tiny stitches. Look at that. Isn't that amazing?
The amount of patience that the woman who made this had to go through a front and a back, and as we'll see in a minute on the inside, it's gorgeous. Yeah, this is amazing.
Absolutely. So this, get my little knitting needle here. Here are the initials.
What are the initials? Because I have difficulty reading those. I'm not going to lie.
Because they're
so interlooped.
They've been embroidered in thread, and something's munched some of the initials off, so it's not complete. But it's RH. I don't know if you can see. This is the R.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And then this is the H. Here's the H swirl comes down here, and then this comes across and down.
Oh, how pretty.
So this wallet was probably made in London or Dublin.
Okay. It
belonged to a man who was a justice in the Court of Common Pleas in Dublin. This is around 1740 to 1760, 1770. And you can see, so this brown fabric here, I don't know, it's hard to tell if what you can see for sure, but can you see how there's some wear here, and you can see the weave of the fabric? Is that
a little bit? The camera's
a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay,
if you take it down a smidge. There we go. Oh, I can see it now. I can see it on my end.
Okay. Actually, I might move it over a little bit, because here we have some, you can see it here, right?
Yep, that's a bit more clear on my end.
This is fulled wool. So the wool has been prepared on the surface after it's been woven, and it's been fluffed up by little combs or teasels. And then that's a way of finishing it. So it has a nice soft hand and a very nice drape. So this wallet was handled quite a bit, this pocketbook. The gentleman would have kept his papers in there. He would have kept, it's possible he had a little ivory notepad, which is basically a couple pieces of thin ivory. And then you would make your little pencil notes on it and stick it in your pocketbook. Now these pocketbooks, men at the time had a lot more pockets than women. Women had the pockets under their skirt. They usually had one or two. And men had pockets in their trousers. They had pockets in their jackets. They had pockets in their waistcoats and their waistcoats. So this is big enough that it would have been in a jacket, probably in the back pocket.
Dana, can you repeat the time period that this comes from?
This is 1740 to 1760.
Okay, so 1740, 1760, so about a 20-year period. Okay.
Yeah, about a 20-year period, because probably the woman who made it in her younger days.
Okay.
And she would have been in her teens in the 1740s.
Okay.
And that's probably when this was made. And here we have this little, so the thing about wool, and the thing about wool that's handled by hands, is that it's delicious if you're a bug. And look, they ate a perfect circle.
Oh yeah, that does happen.
And then if we come over here, so we've seen the beautiful embroidery, and then we have this sort of mad stitching down the side here.
I always find that stitching so curious on the edge.
Right, this is mad stitching. This is stitching by not the person who did the embroidery or made the pocketbook. And you'll be able to see it more clearly inside. But it's a repair. It's a repair that somebody did to keep the pocket in one piece. Maybe to use it more, maybe to just keep it shut. There's some more mad stitching.
That is stitching that I would probably do on something, not really knowing how to stitch anything. So yes, I can identify that very well.
If you can see here, there's little tiny green stitches, and those are original because they match the lining.
Yeah. So what kind of stitching? Mad stitching?
Mad.
Yeah. So somebody that
That's
is,
that's a descriptive term. It's not really.
yeah, that's not formal. It's just more of a, I need to get this done really quick. It's falling apart
Right.
stitching.
Yes, and it's actually back stitching. So you're going in, you're coming through the fabric, you're going backwards, you put the needle back in, and then you come out further, and then you go backwards, and that's a pretty stabilizing stitch. But if you do it, it's sort of like my husband says, if you don't know how to tie a knot, tie a lot. And this makes me think of that. There's lots of back stitching going on here, but not necessarily tidy stitching that would have been instructed. But the very exciting thing about this pocket book is that you can see, if I move this just a little bit, you can see the back of the stitching.
Ooh, oh, yep, you can.
And that, I'm just holding it very gently. That is really, it's the best part to see the back, because that just sort of brings home that a human made these stitches.
Yes, and spent so much time and effort and care.
Yep.
So Dana, we have a question from the chat. Do you know if the plants depicted hold any meaning?
Well, they do. There is this whole language of flowers that was very popular in the 18th century and into the 19th century. This is holly. You can see the little red berries. I don't know what this plant is here. Maybe somebody in our chat, in our group chat, can maybe tell. There's little brown buds almost, not sure. But it's also complicated by the fact that I don't think this was made in New England. It's made in Dublin or London.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
I think it came to this country later by descendants of the person who owned it. And this mad stitching over here is not original.
Oh yeah, the big, very obvious white stitching.
That is where we have put the label so that we know, so that its number does not come off.
That's a really beautiful piece. This one, when Dana first showed me this and she unwrapped it, it just felt magical to see this emerge. Especially it was one of the first warm days I think we had. It's like, oh, this is such a springtime piece.
Yeah, it's very springtime. And I think these are probably carnations. They look like carnations. This could be a black-eyed Susan. I almost called it Lazy Susan because that's what I called it as a child. And
oh, I could see a black-eyed Susan, yeah.
My husband that's not correct. So all of these, how much close can I get? How's this? Is this okay?
That's good, yeah. Yep, that's good.
Look at, this is not variegated yarn. This is not yarn that is multicolored. These are all these different color stitches are different threads.
I love that. I love the fact that somebody went back and used different colors to deepen the flowers and to make them really much more 3D in a way.
Yeah, and when you see, you can almost see these are some ghost stitches.
Yeah.
This white wool has been eaten by bugs over time. And you can almost imagine, like, why did they eat just this bit? Well, this bit maybe had a thumbprint of, you know, sandwich juice on it, or ham, or, you know, something to make it even more delicious.
Very nice.
But all of these different things are part of the pocketbook's story. So we wouldn't, you know, a conservator would not go in and put these stitches back.
Yep.
What they would do is just stabilize it from the back where it can't be seen so that these little ghost little pinpricks don't fall out.
And Dana, also from the chat, we have an idea of what the other side on the interior, the other side of a plant could be. Somebody's saying it could be thistles. I think that flower is associated with Scotland. I believe so as well. So yeah, we should maybe do some more research on that. Thank you, Judy, for that, for the comment.
With this here?
Yeah.
Thistle? The inside flower?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah, thank you for the lead.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Scotland, because they were definitely, I know for sure that they were in London, and I know for sure that they were in Dublin.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and interestingly, the these two, there are portraits of these. I'm not going to talk about the people because I want to talk about the craft, but there are portraits of them in the National Gallery of Ireland.
So Dana, I stand corrected. The person said not on the inside, on the outside flower. So we'll do some digging on
Okay.
flowers in Ireland and England, inside and out, because this is a particularly striking piece. So,
and please send it along because I would love to know. Okay, now this is another man's pocketbook, and it's more in a format that maybe you will recognize. Because it looks like really something you could use today, right?
oh, definitely, yeah.
Come on, you. Tissue paper. Okay. Now I'm going to open it, and this has been broken since it was given to us, so I'm not cracking the leather, don't worry. But here, written inside, can you read that? It says Arthur Fenner's book, 1795.
Wow.
And there's a little hole here that fits my knitting needle perfectly. I'm not going to stick it in there, but you can imagine the size of writing implement that would have been stuck in there.
Yeah, but that's such a convenient little nook for a little writing implement.
Right. And so in here, there's this paper. It's almost like blotting paper. I'm not sure what this extra glued on piece would have been for. There's the extra glued on piece.
Oh yeah, I do see that. Yep.
And it could just be extra securing for the flap that's on the back.
Okay.
And then also this interior piece moves.
Oh, look at that. I love little compartments and wallets.
So there would have been, this would have been leather on the sides. It is long since come off. So this would have been a pocket. And then over here, we also have a pocket.
Oh, very nice.
And there's all of this hand tooling on the leather. You see that?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So this is definitely something that would have been made here. Certainly could have been made in Rhode Island. I don't know. We don't know specifically who made it, but it was probably made by a saddle maker. They've traditionally made other leather goods.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And this is another size that would have gone in the man's coat pocket. Now the coat pockets were in the back, in the flaps. If you imagine that, like, what's that Netflix show everybody's in love with?
Bridgerton, yes.
So there's cutaway jackets that have the flaps in the back that the men wear.
Yep.
There are pockets back there.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And that's actually one of the reasons why we still flip tuxedo tails up when we sit down.
Oh, I did not know that.
It's like a vestigial movement, because you don't really have to flip them up. You can sit on them. There's no pockets back there.
Yes, but historically there would have been a pocket. Oh, interesting.
Right. Their worldly possessions are not back there in the pocket.
Very fascinating.
And we also have some munching that went on here. Delicious. Probably the hide glue. Oh, it's very good. Bugs love hide glue.
Oh, that would make sense. I'm so fascinated with the ornamentation differences between the last couple of wallets that we've seen, especially the last one with all the flowers to this one.
Right. Right, and this one's 1795, and it's fairly typical man's wallet from post-Revolutionary War onwards. It's not that women were not making the pocketbooks with the wool embroidery for that one. I did want to mention something about that other.
And I have one more question, actually, Dana, about this one before it goes away.
It goes away. Wait a minute. Pretend I didn't do that. Okay. Ready. What's the question?
So if there is room for a quill, might there have been space to store powdered ink somewhere with something like this? So I guess, do you know anything about what writing implement would have been in that little tiny long pocket in there?
Yes, it could have been, let me turn this over so we can get it open again. Here's our little pocket. And you notice I'm not like flattening this out completely because the leather is still dry, even though it's been conditioned. They could have had a little quill pen in there. They had these metal styluses that you that came to a point that you could dip in ink and write with. They didn't hold the ink for very long. They didn't have a nib necessarily.
Okay.
And you can kind of see it comes down to a point down here. So there's definitely something in this pocket that was pointy. And at this time, and actually before this, in the 1750s, we know for sure that they had traveling ink containers.
Oh, cool.
And they were about this big around. And sometimes they were lead, sometimes they were glass, sometimes they had a lead cover, sometimes they had a cork cover that would then be covered in wax.
Okay.
And you would peel the wax off, take the cork cover out, use the ink, put the cork back on. And assuming that you were traveling and staying at a tavern or an inn or a friend's house, they would have wax to give you to reseal your container. So this is another something that the men would have put in their pocket or pockets.
All the pockets.
Yes, all the pockets. And also women also carried these little traveling ink containers in their pockets also.
Okay.
Any more questions about this one before I?
That was the last question that we had. And Dana, just for a time check for you, it is 6:35 because I know we had discussed that.
Oh my gosh. See, this is the problem with the textiles is that I could just talk about them. Okay. Now, I did want to just show you something quick. This stitch pattern right here and repeated up here, this is Bargello pattern, and this is very typical of Rhode Island embroidered pocketbooks.
Oh, you had mentioned this. I'm so fascinated by that. It's a very Rhode Island pattern.
It's a very Rhode Island pattern, and it's also a very Rhode Island pattern to have this sort of gradation of color. So it goes from dark to light, and then it goes from light to dark. And there are a couple of Rhode Island pocketbooks in the Met and at the MFA in Boston, and we have several others here that have that Bargello pattern on them in there.
And
Rhode Island.
What's the name of the pattern?
Bargello?
Bardello?
What? No, not Bargello.
Sorry, you're just slightly muffled, but I'm missing the consonant right in the middle.
Let me see. Which side is the thing?
Bargello. Bargello. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so now moving into the 1830s.
All right, so we're jumping about 40 years ahead from where we just were. Yep.
40 years, about 40 years ahead. These were also typical, about 10 years before this one was made too. But this, where is my? Okay, ready? Is the suspense killing everybody?
Oh, yes. Oh, this piece.
Now we've left the world of pocketbooks and we're in the world of reticules, which is just a fancy way of saying a small drawstring bag.
But it's such a fancy, beautiful little drawstring bag.
It is, and I'm going to raise it up higher and everybody can see what is. Are we in focus?
Mm-hmm.
These are glass beads.
All of them. So the blue, the white, the gold. Yeah, that's beautiful.
These are metal beads.
Okay.
These are brass. And then these are glass. So glass and brass. And this is earlier silk fabric. It was probably part of a dress. If you can see the inside.
Oh yeah, you can see a faint pattern on it still, right?
Yes, it is a brocade, a silk brocade.
Mm-hmm.
As you can see, there's like a diamond pattern here.
Yep.
Hard to see. But it would have been purple and yellow plaid, if you can imagine.
The coloration in this time period is always really interesting to me.
Oh yeah. It's all about, you know, can I wear green, purple, orange plaid and, you know, a fur hat with a bird on it.
And have the giant sleeves, yeah.
And have the giant sleeves. And yes, you can wear all of those things. So we do know who made this. It was a young lady living in Bristol. And she just put every single one of these beads on one at a time.
Oh, again, the patience. That's amazing to me. Those are such tiny little little seeds, if you will.
They are,
yeah.
I mean, this is a size 1 knitting needle.
Yeah.
I have an even smaller one here. But I mean, here's my pinky nail. Look how many beads you can fit in my pinky nail.
Yeah.
It's absolutely astonishing. It's astonishing how many. And I don't know, it's hard to, I wish I could get even closer, but they kind of slant directionally. So you can tell that she sewed these this way. And then
Yeah.
she went back and sewed these that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Can you see that a little bit where they're going this way? And then on the return row, they're going the other way.
Oh, that's so fascinating.
Yeah, here, let me move this so you can see the red. It's more visible in the red. I don't know
Okay.
why. I think just because of the type of beads that.
Yeah, it could just be the consistency. Oh yeah. It's yeah, it almost looks like a knitting pattern back and forth. Yeah.
Yep. How they're tilted.
Yep.
The beads are not completely round, they're a little bit flat.
Yeah, it almost looks like it's a like a fabric texture.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
tiny glass beads.
Yeah. Wow.
So making this kind of reticule in the 1830s all the way through the 1880s, this was definitely the work that young ladies would have done, especially young ladies who lived in a household where other women were doing actual work. And they had, this was part of their education. It was also part of proof of leisure.
Of course, yep. To show that you are able to have this time. To go back to the seed pattern or the bead pattern that somebody's saying, it could be a herringbone pattern. I can see that too, definitely.
It's not intentionally herringbone, but yes, that is the pattern that is being created by how it's being stitched. And the reason why I say it's not a herringbone pattern is because in places, it's too close, isn't it? How's that?
That's okay.
In places where you can kind of tell she's being very careful up here, and then down here she's like, oh my gosh, there's so many white beads to do. And it kind of gets kind of messy.
I give her a lot of credit through getting through either all the blue and most of the white, and then hitting that point. I would have gone through maybe 2 rows.
Yeah, it's very intense.
Yeah.
So this is reused silk at the top, and she made this lovely little piped border around the edge. Yep. And it would have been a drawstring ribbon. It's long gone now. Those are usually the first things to fall off.
I know that feeling. Oh, that's beautiful.
Any other questions?
It doesn't seem to be any other questions from our audience. No, I'm excited to see the next piece though.
Okay, here we go. And I know it kind of looks like I'm just throwing stuff over here, but I have a little table down here. I'm not tossing them on the floor.
This is all very choreographed for everybody watching.
Yes, we've done many rehearsals. All right, this one. So we kind of chose things that were useful articles because they're purses and pocketbooks and reticules, but also ones that show just how much work was being put into them by the women who were making them. I don't know what my problem is. I'm always opening these things upside down. Here we go. Now,
it's okay.
This is really something.
There's a lot going on with this.
There is a lot going on. I mean, look at it. It's very, it seems like maybe it was made in 1965, right?
It does, yes. To me, it definitely screams like 60s into 1970s with a
Yep.
lot of patterns and a lot of mixing, matching of all the colors.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there are pictures of my mom in a sweater in this pattern, right? From the late 60s. This is 1850 to 1880, and this stitching is actually cotton, not wool. So now we're well into the Industrial Revolution. Cotton is becoming more and more cheap. It is now becoming socially acceptable to do your embroidery with cotton as opposed to silk or wool. And again, I'm going to raise this up just a little bit. Can everybody still hear me talking?
Mhm.
These are stitches here. Where am I? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches down.
Mhm.
5 stitches up so that each side has 6 stitches.
Okay, yeah. And then it's all beautifully even and structured, yeah.
Yep. And you can actually see there's no, we're still in the era where counted cross stitch is not a thing yet. And like pre-printed fabric. So what you're doing is you're just stitching onto this fabric. You can see a little bit of it there.
Mhm.
It's just linen. And after a while, like a little bit wiggly here. I mean, how can you tell? It's very wiggly already.
Yeah, but your eye has to just catch in the right moments, and then you can really see that this is made by
Yeah.
human hand. This is a woman that's doing this on her own. This is not machine made.
Right. And then this edging is made with the same cotton thread, and it's double twisted together. So you would have twisted 2 strands
Mhm.
and then just sort of let them coil up on each other to make this double twist.
Oh, fascinating. Okay.
And then this,
So that's pattern number 1 on this.
pattern number 1. Pattern number 2 is this gorgeous silk plaid. And it's lined with calendared linen, which is just a process that helps make linen quite shiny.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
this
it does pop. Yeah, you can see
Yeah.
on our end. We can definitely see the sheen of
Mhm.
the linen. Yep.
And for those of you who are wondering why I'm touching the fabric with my hands, I did wash my hands very thoroughly with this soap called Simple Soap, and it strips everything off your hands. So I don't have any oils on my hands right now, so I can touch things gently. But this purple would have been a little bit brighter.
Okay.
And what has faded is this here. This would have been orange.
Wow.
And then
Okay.
right in the middle. So also very 60s kind of plaid going on here.
Very fascinating.
This ribbon is actually not a ribbon. This is a selvage cut off of a bigger piece of fabric. So here's the selvage edge of this
Mhm.
fabric. And then if you see here, this is where it was cut. See
Oh,
how,
yeah.
you see this notch? So this is like a little bit sloppy scissor cutting here. But
Interesting.
so
Oh, yeah.
This ribbon was cut to be a ribbon, but wasn't woven to be a ribbon. It was actually part of a bigger piece of fabric. And for people who are wondering, yes, the fun continues on the other side.
So I guess the blue ribbon would have picked up the blue in the cotton part, and then
Yep.
that orange that's been faded would also pick up some of the orange. So
Yeah, so
okay.
the silk, and the reason why I think this silk fabric is much earlier than the actual embroidery, it's probably an old dress. It's probably a dress that belonged to the mother
Okay.
of the woman who made the embroidery, because it has faded quite a bit, and it is more of a pattern and a style that would have been 1820s, 1815.
Okay.
And this is very common to reuse pieces of fabric from previous garments that are no longer in fashion. Certainly the amount of fabric in a dress from 1810 would not have been enough to remake into an 1850s dress.
That's
If
fair.
you're looking at the Empire style, which is the high waist from Bridgerton, and then, Civil War style with the giant skirts. You don't have enough.
Yeah, there's a big difference in the yardage between those two.
Right. And this strange little thing here is a little burn in the cotton.
I was wondering, that caught my
So-
eye when you flipped it over. It's a little burn. That's fascinating.
Oh, it's just a little burn, and you could make up your own story about how that happened. Maybe they blew out the candle too ferociously, and a little ember came down and
Yeah.
got on their pocketbook. But everything up until this point, if you can imagine, is being sewn by daylight or by candlelight.
That's really
At this
impressive.
point, they could have had gas light, but that's still, that pattern, even under gaslight, is kind of shocking.
That would still be quite a thing to be making under gaslight.
Right? Absolutely. All right, so now we're gonna fast forward about 20 more years. This is the 1890 to 1910. It's the second to last item. Okay, this is pretty stunning. I'm gonna have to move it down so you guys get the full effect.
Oh, this is the bag that I think I told Dana that I wanted immediately. She opened this one up and it's like, I will take 3, one in every color, please. It's a gorgeous piece.
I'm gonna pretend everybody's saying, ooh, ah. This is the strap. Okay. So this beautiful ombre dyed silk satin fabric, which is, ombre is just a gradual dyeing from one color to another.
Which is very fashionable right now, actually.
Yes, and it's very fashionable in hair, I believe.
It is, yes.
For people with hair, I don't have any. But if we get up close here, now this bag has spent some time squished in a drawer or, under things, but this is, the whole bag would have been pleated like this.
Oh, I just
These
love that.
pleats, aren't they beautiful? And they're all
Yes.
done by hand, even though at this era, there was plenty of machine sewing to be had. But this was all done by hand, and then also this embroidery too, done by hand.
It's so beautiful and so uniform for being done by hand. I mean, all of
Right.
these have been great, but this is the one where it just seems so seamless.
And this is, you can see the little couching stitches for the
Mhm.
pleats. Because you also have to pleat the lining and attach it to the front. Otherwise, if you don't do that, then it won't do this beautiful, if I can get the corner to show. It won't do the beautiful expanding. That's
love
all I'm
that.
going to expand it. But the whole thing would have been, if it's hanging off your shoulder and you're in a ballroom and it's lit by gaslight or it's lit by newfangled electric lights, then this would have just glittered and shone as it
Yeah.
was twirled around.
Yeah, this piece in particular just seems so magical. It just feels like it would have glowed so gorgeously, and it would have billowed in a way. I just love that about this.
Yeah, I really like this. And you can kind of imagine it, in marble staircased mansions and things
Definitely.
like that. And it is from New York City. It was not made here. It was made in New York City.
Very nice.
But yeah, I mean, look at that. It's so sweet, isn't it? And then over here we have the tassels, which are also all handmade. So in an era of, handmade, machine-made things, we have a beautiful handmade bag.
Yeah. Whoever would have made this must have been very proud to say that to somebody too when they asked, well, where did you get your bag? And we have a comment that the bag, it looks like it could have expanded big enough to be Hermione's bag or Mary Poppins bag.
Oh yes, this definitely has an undetectable extension charm on it.
Which I think
For my
everybody would love.
for my Harry Potter friends. Yes, I mean, I could totally see like pulling a hat rack out of it, right? Isn't that what Mary Poppins pulls out? A hat
Yeah.
rack, the coat rack. Okay, how are we on time? Still good?
We have about 5 to 10 more minutes.
Okay, great. I have one more thing.
Yay. Oh, I love this piece too.
All right. So this piece was made in Providence by a local tailor, Taylor, seamstress. Look at that.
Oh, the beading on this.
I know, right? This is actually part of the zipper fob, very fancy. So this was made by Connie Hicks. She was and I'm telling you her name because Spring Forward, which is our big event coming up, we are going to be doing more of her actual clothing that she made and talking about her style and her couture sewing techniques and things like that. But this was all hand beaded. And so she did all this beading.
Wow.
And then this was done on a substrate. So I don't know if you can see. Where's sorry, I know it's wiggly. That's why I'm holding it on the board, not with my hand. Okay, I don't know if
I think that works.
The color, the shine difference between in here and here. Yeah, this is sort of matte.
Yeah, definitely. Oh yeah.
This is a different fabric. This is a stiffer silk.
Okay.
So she did the beading on the stiffer silk and then cut it out and tucked all the little stiffer silk under and sewed this on. So it's like an applique, like quilt applique.
Mm-hmm. I love this. I love this as an echo to the previous piece that we saw with all the tiny glass beads. It's just such a nice connection over what over 100-year period or so.
Right, and that was actually one of the reasons why we picked this one is because we did have this one. And if you look at them next to each other.
Oh yeah. And Dana, remind me, the Connie Hicks piece is 1950s, 1960s?
1959.
1959. Okay.
Yeah. And we know that because it's a little date in there that she put in on the inside. But look how huge these beads are compared to these.
That's true. They seem much easier to sew compared to the other ones. We hadn't done a side by side before, so I think I had misremembered the previous bag.
So even this comparison, this doesn't look like beads.
No,
right?
Not at all.
It doesn't look like beads next to these beads. It looks like, oh, it's just a print.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, look, this still took forever, the big beads.
Oh, I'm
not
sure.
As long as this one.
Yeah. The young woman who made the smaller one, that would have taken forever, and I'm sure some very sore eyes afterwards. But I love this Connie Hicks piece because it being 1959, it has that like right on the verge of the 1960s, the big bold colors. I'm a big fan for those that haven't met me before. I'm a big fan of Mad Men. So looking at this, I just like, this screams like 1960s to me so much.
Yeah, and it has this great shape where it tapers down to the bottom. And then I'm going to open it. These are stuffed, so they're puffy.
Okay.
And it has a metal zipper. It makes a very satisfying noise, doesn't it?
It does. We heard it on our end too. That's great.
And inside, she's sewn little pockets. I don't know if you can see the little pockets because they're in black. It's very typical of the time period and of all the bags my grandmother carried. There's a comb just for this bag, a mirror just for this bag, and a little coin purse just for this bag.
So you can be very well coordinated when you have to head to the ladies' room to powder your nose and fix your hair.
Absolutely. But
obviously,
also, in this way, and my grandmother's handbags were just the same way. Her handbags always had a comb, a mirror, and a coin purse or some other like little something that snapped closed to put coins in, because you didn't want to have to trade those things between your bags.
No, there was always this idea of being very well coordinated, that the little accessories go with the bag, and that was just for me one of those little tidbits that I always love about a bag.
And we don't know exactly what outfit she made this to go with of her own outfits, but she did make a lovely salmon colored dress, 3-piece dress. So I could see how this could be beautiful with the salmon colored.
Yeah, I think it would be very striking, very handsome against that. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. And there's nothing on the back because you would have this would have been on your side, your body side of the bag.
Yeah, you definitely want to show those flowers off on the public side, if you will.
Right. So one last side-by-side comparison.
Oh, I love the echoes of one floral piece to another.
Yeah. So we've got these different color, oops, that's the wrong one. Different colors in this flower, different colors in this flower.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can see it again in the leaves as well in both pieces. And this is, remind me again, Dana, this is what, about 200 years difference between one piece to the other?
Yes, this is 1750s, would have been used in the 1750s, maybe made a little bit before that, and then this is 1950, so 200 years later.
Yeah, but still both striking. They both, and looking at them, they feel so quintessential for their time periods, but
and then
I love it.
The little beaded one is sort of almost in between both of these.
Yeah. Oh, this has been fantastic. So we have 7 o'clock exactly. I will throw out to everybody, if you have any last lingering questions before we end the program, feel free to throw them in the chat. We'll give you a couple of minutes. But Dana, thank you so much for this. I know that you love all of our textiles, and I know that it was challenging to pull out just a handful of pieces for tonight's talk. So thank you so much for doing this.
Anytime. And yes, as Jen said, it was really quite hard to narrow down 3,700 items down to 6. But we went with the purse thing, and because most people have experience with some kind of container to carry their things in, a purse, a wallet, a pocket, something like that. And part of this started with a rant I was having about how girl clothes do not have appropriate pockets. and Jen and I were talking about how, how did people carry stuff before they had all these pockets that women still don't have? So.
Yeah, no, I love the fact that we came down to this topic in particular, because I feel we jumped 250 years or so, 200 years in this conversation, and yet these are so universal in a way, yet also so signature for each individual carrier. You can see the person almost who would have had each one. They feel very unique. And Dana, you were getting comments that people loved seeing these precious objects up close, and that this was wonderful. So thank you everybody for coming to tonight's event. We really appreciate it. This is our first time experimenting with something like this. As Dana referenced earlier, we had a lot of rehearsals to walk through some of the technological quirks on this. So we really, really appreciate having you all here tonight. And just a quick plug, because Dana had mentioned it earlier. So in a couple of weeks, we have our big fundraiser called Spring Forward, and the focus of it will be the 1960s. That's Thursday, May 27th. A part of that event will be Connie Hick's work. It's about 1960s in general, with a lot of different fascinating parts, but you got a little quick preview of that Connie Hick's bag in particular. So if you enjoyed tonight's event, we would love to have you join us for that one as well. Tickets for that are available on our website, RIHS.org. And we look forward to having you with us again soon. All right, everybody, take care. Thanks so much. Enjoy this nice, warm, springy weather that they're going to be seeing, and we'll see you again soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.